If you're an admin to Google Workspace, maybe you're a new admin, maybe you've been using it for a long time, well, this video is all about helping you with Google Workspace management. I want to help you with the tips for looking after the admin panel and the admin console of Google Workspace, and basically help you with your Google Workspace admin needs. You are the person responsible for looking after it, whether you're a business owner or an IT leader, and you need to manage Google Workspace for your organization. Well, this video I'm going to cover some of the basics, some of the things you need to know from someone who's been working with Google Workspace for literally 20 years. And in that time, yeah, it's grown, it's changed, and it's now a little bit of a beast. But we're going to go through everything you need to know to effectively admin your Google Workspace account. So let's talk about what is the responsibility of a Google Workspace administrator. First up, the admin console is where you're going to live, and you can navigate around fairly easily once you're in there. It's pretty self-explanatory with the different categories and areas. But my pro tip is, as much as possible, just to use the search. Google search right inside the admin panel is pretty good to find what you need to do. And so if you need to change the managed bookmark settings of Google Chrome user profiles, you can search for Chrome user and that's going to appear. If you want to modify an individual user and reset their password, you can just search for that person's name, bring up the user account, and you're good to go. Let's go through some of the basics and then we'll get into some of the more advanced stuff as well. So after you've had a look around and you've got a bit of a feel for the admin panel, obviously most of your time is going to be spent in the user management area, changing passwords, renaming, adding aliases to users. But if you do need help with onboarding or offboarding staff, well, you can watch some of our other videos where we cover exactly how we do that, what our best practices are, and what our recommendations are for doing those processes. I'm not going to cover that in depth in this video. You can watch some of those other ones for that. Now, the next thing that you need to understand with users is organizational units. And you can effectively apply group permissions and group-based policies to certain groups of staff and even groups of devices as well. And so if you're a small business, you've got less than 15 staff, you probably don't need to bother with this. But as you become a larger organization and you start getting a bit more sophisticated with data controls and what information or access you want to share to different people in the organization, well, setting up some basic organizational units and then placing users into those units and setting up different policies for those units is where you want to go. Now, when you set a policy at the top level, it's going to apply to the whole company. Obviously, you can then set a different policy to an organizational unit and it will override the company policy just for that setting, just for that organizational unit. And you'll see there when you change a setting, it gives you the option to override, and you also have the option to revert that back if you want to revert it back to the main settings. Obviously, you've got the core apps. So if you browse to the apps menu, you'll see the core apps for Google, but you'll also see all of the other apps that your team may or may not have access to. Now, in most cases, these will be left completely open, but depending on your business, you may choose to restrict certain apps for certain groups of people in the business. At times, we've had team members who we just don't need access to external tools, or perhaps someone who needs access to a mailbox but doesn't need access to Google Drive. You can switch those on and off on a unit-by-unit basis as needed. Now, if you're interested in learning more in depth about what all the buttons do, well, you can check out our video, Navigating the Admin Console, for some more insights and info on exactly how to do that. Okay, user accounts. If you're setting up and configuring the account and you're the person responsible for onboarding and setting up all your users during a migration, you can actually add accounts in bulk if you want. So if you've got tens or even hundreds of staff to import, you can do a CSV file, upload that, and you can go ahead and upload all of your users. Of course, you can also integrate with third-party single sign-on solutions as well, both having Google as the master directory if you want, and others as the slave directory. So maybe something like Azure. If you want to have Microsoft control of computers, you can link your Google directory to your Microsoft directory. Or maybe you want to use Okta or one of the other identity login providers as your primary identity and have that push to Google as your identity provider as the master and Google as the slave. That works too. You can configure each of those options. Some of them require being on a higher plan, like an enterprise plan, to get that to work, but those options are there for you. There is also another great feature called Google Identity, and it used to be called Identity Free. Now it's called Identity Management for Google Workspace, and that feature allows you to actually create user accounts with a verified identity and two-factor authentication and everything else that you might need to lock down to an account without a mailbox. So you don't actually have to pay for the user. Now, that's useful if you want to use Google as your primary directory and use it for access to different systems, but not everyone in the organization actually needs to pay for a Google Workspace license. This is also a great idea to set up a secondary super administrator account, which is different from you or the business owner or the primary user of the account, because security best practice is to have a separate super administrator account which is not used for day-to-day tasks and is only signed into when you need to do tasks for the super admin account. So that would be our recommendation there, is to also use Google's identity service. Now, I mentioned two-factor authentication, and I can't make a video and mention security without talking about the policy. Go to the security settings and switch on the two-factor authentication policy for your domain. It's not enabled by default, but it is our strongest recommendation to do that, because honestly, that stops 90% of phishing attacks on all of the issues that we've had across all of our customers, and we have 25,000 seats that we manage across our business. If you switch this on, you're honestly going to keep most of the nasties out of your account. My recommendation is to not use phone numbers for two-factor authentication, and so you switch that feature off and instead use security keys or your phone key code generator. You can even create pass keys so you can have passwordless entry as well. But two-factor, switch off the mobile access if you can get away with that, and then give your team members, in my recommendation, 1 week onboarding grace period, which means that when you deploy a new account, they've got a couple of days to get themselves settled in a new job, download the Authenticator app, get two-factor set up before it's enforced on their account. Now, once you've got all of those basics set up, you might want to set up some permissions groups, and you'll use the groups service for that. It's right next to the users service. When you create a group, you can either use that as a distribution list, like an email address that can go to multiple people's mailboxes. We've got more videos on distribution lists and how to set them up, because there's a few different ways to do that. But you can also use them for security groups. And that's where we would apply a group-based permission to a resource inside of Workspace. We might apply it to a calendar event. We might apply it to a Google Drive folder. We might apply it to accessing a chat room. So groups are really useful, and I've got lots of videos on the channel on how to set up groups. And specifically, I've got a training masterclass on what we call the Google Drive Blueprint, which is applying groups to shared drives and that full end-to-end process from start to finish. So if you're new to Google Drive or you're new to Google Workspace, you definitely want to check that one out to make sure you've got the right permissions set up across all your organization. Now, we touched on some security. Let's go a little bit deeper. There are some advanced features in here which are some more relevant to enterprise organizations, but I think it's always useful to have a look if you're a small business as well. Now, you can set up endpoint management for additional protection of your devices. If you're using Chrome devices, obviously they're semi-managed by Google Workspace out of the box. That would be a Chromebook or a Chrome box. You're using your Google logins and you're protected by all the Google security features of those logins, right? But if you're using a Windows machine or an Android device or an Apple device, you also want to enable some of the mobile device management options, and GCGW is the tool that allows you to connect your Windows machines to your Google identities. And now that means that even if you're not using a Microsoft server in your business, you can still have some semblance of management over end users' computers and locking them down so they can't just be logged into willy-nilly. Now, there are some pretty cool features for security monitoring inside of Workspace, so make sure you go ahead and check out the analysis, the analytics, the reports, the insights reports. There's even a brand new small business vulnerabilities report which is being released, which is going to automatically, just using machine learning, let you know if there's files shared outside the organization or potentially sensitive information. You can set up alerts for suspicious activities, but keep in mind that Google's going to send you alerts for these kind of things anyway. If there's a high proportion of spam going to one of your users, they're going to send you an email. If there's a high proportion of phishing emails, either going to someone's mailbox or going out of someone's mailbox as well. Now, while we're talking security of the business, it's a good idea to think about backup. Google does include the option of upgrading to Google Vault if you want to store and save your emails, your Drive files, your chat messages, and everything in a secure place, so that even if they're deleted by a staff member or a bad actor, There's still a carbon copy of them in Vault, but Vault isn't really a backup tool. It's more designed for e-discovery in the event of like a legal issue or some kind of internal issue that you need to retain, search, and maybe even export data. For example, if you've been subpoenaed or you've got to do an investigation on someone's account. A true backup solution means that your data is actually coming out of Google's system, and there's multiple third-party tools that we recommend for that. We've got some more information on why that's a good idea in some of these videos that are also up on the channel. Spanning and Backupify are the two most popular options, and we're actually global partners for both of those. And so if you're interested in them, if you're a concierge member of itGenius, you actually get a couple of free licenses with your subscription. But if you'd like volume licensing for those, we can do a really great price for you because we obviously sell it to many thousands of businesses. So reach out to our team if you're interested in backup options, and we can help quote you up on those. Now, finally, it's a good idea to educate your staff on good password management practices, enhanced passwords, which is always a good idea, but user education is always an important part of this. If you haven't already, rolling out a password management app to your team would be a good idea to make sure that they are well protected and they're not sharing passwords. Now, that's outside the Google ecosystem, but that's just good IT security practice. Now, once you're ready to go live, it's time to switch on your DNS, set up your MX records, and you're off to the races. Emails are going to start flowing to Google. But you've got to be careful to make sure you get all of the email compliance settings correct. That means SPF, DKIM, and DMARC records. Now, if you're watching this and that sounds like another language, that's okay. You can watch one of our videos on explaining DNS and explaining exactly what these tools are, but you want to make sure that you get these correct when you deploy your account onto Workspace and activate Gmail, because if you don't get them perfect, your emails might end up in people's spam, or emails coming to your business may even be rejected and not delivered. And that's not a good thing if you're trying to run a business. So you want to make sure that you get those right for email deliverability. And if you need some help with that, you can talk to an expert from our team who can check your setup, and they'll do that for free. And if you need any help, you can even take advantage of a quick fix, which is our instant support service. It's a very affordable service, a couple of $100, and our team will check and resolve any issues that you have with your DNS. You can also use a DNS checking tool to see exactly where they're at right now, just to have peace of mind to make sure that you've got it configured correctly. So head along to itgenius.com/DNS, and that will redirect you to a testing tool where you can test your domain name and just make sure you've got your SPF, DKIM, and DMARC correct. If you're interested in deploying plugins, add-ons, forcing them down to users' machines, you can do that using Google Chrome policies. And you don't even have to have a Chromebook. As long as someone is signed in to their Google Workspace account in their Chrome profile, you can use the Google Chrome user settings inside the device menu to deploy policies down to people's Google Chrome browsers. And that means that if you want to have a standard set of bookmarks where everyone gets the same set of automatic bookmarks menu, you can deploy that. If you want to do things like disable the built-in Chrome password manager or disable Chrome's ability to save credit card information if they're handling customers' credit card information, you can change all of those settings right from your Google Workspace admin panel, which is very cool. So as long as they're signed in, it'll apply no matter what device they're using. Next up, let's talk about sharing data. And by now, I'm sure you've heard of using shared drives. They're the alternative to My Drive. My Drive is like your My Documents. Shared drives is the place you go to inside of Google Drive to set up a company drive. Now, anytime someone puts files into that shared drive, the files become owned by the company, which means that there's no chance of them being deleted. Now, this is great for contractors. If you've got anyone outside the business collaborating with your team, it is mandatory that you use shared drives, because if you're just sharing a folder in your My Drive, even though you own the folder, you don't necessarily own the files within that folder, because someone else places a file in there, they're the creator of the file, they are the owner of the file. Using shared drives is the solution to this, and it means that you're able to share company property securely, and everyone can access it securely as well with different levels of permissions. One of my favorite permission roles here is contributor role, which means that people can create documents, they can place the documents into the shared drive, they can edit the documents once they're in the shared drive, but they can't move them and they can't delete them. So they can't make a mess and they can't delete anything. And I use that for many of our shared drives where we've got teams working with other teams in the business, and you don't want someone to go into your Google Drive and make a mess in the team folder, or some people will drag and drop a file and they accidentally drag it into a subfolder and then it disappears and you don't see it again. So if you want some more tips on setting up your shared drives, check out our video on group permissions and shared drives. That's the blueprint video that I mentioned earlier, and you'll be able to get them all set up and running on a dime. Now, if you're interested in additional collaboration tools, I'm sure you've made your way around all of the basics of Workspace by now. But once you've got Drive set up correctly, you've got your Gmail set up correctly, everyone's got their signatures done, the next thing to look at is probably Google Chat. If you're a business that's been using Slack, or maybe you're using Messenger or WhatsApp or Teams or something else to communicate with your team, well, it's time to set up Google Chat. Obviously, you can direct message each other, but the real power is setting up shared chat rooms, or spaces they're called. And those spaces allow you to have multiple people from one business group or one project or one area of the business in one place. And they can, if they want, share files. Maybe not the best way to share files, but it's available there. But they can share moments, communicate with each other, and you can even integrate third-party apps in there as well. So if you're interested to have alerts from an external system come into your Google Chat, you can use a tool like Zapier to create automated integrations into your Google Chat, and they work absolutely awesome for keeping you and your team up to date. And because everything is one nicely integrated system, you open up a chat with someone and you want to jump in a meeting, boom, click one button and you've got a Google Meet there. If you are chatting and you want to organize a calendar event or schedule something, you can do that right inside of chat. If you want to share a document, you can drop the document inside of chat. It's going to check that it's shared with that person. Everything happens in chat in our business, and because we're using Google exclusively all day long, it makes sense for us to be in chat. So if you've got any questions or you'd like some more insights, leave a comment just down below this video, or you can join me for a live Q&A session. Drop your questions into ask.itgenius.com and I'll try and answer them during our next live stream. If you'd like some help with Google Workspace, or you would like an audit of your account just to check that you've set up things correctly, well, you can take advantage of our health check for Google Workspace, and that's available for all business owners, whether you are a sole operator right up to a large organization with tens or thousands of customers. And if you are anywhere in the world, we can look after you as well. We've got customers in over 30 countries in many different places, and we'd love to have you as a customer of ours. Click on the link down below to get started.